Their journey began in Yasharel. But they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beat, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.
Hello. Welcome to the weekly Heart of the Tribe show. My name is Chelle Wagner, and I'm so glad that you came to join us today. So I do have my guest with me again today, Nurse Lee Carruthers. I'm going to go ahead and add her to the show. Welcome, Lee. So glad you're here with me.
Shalom, Chelle. I am so happy to be here. You know, I love that intro. Every time it plays, I'm just in awe. It is amazing. What a wonderful work by Catherine Hood, Blood of the Lamb Ministries. It is amazing and so fitting. It really is.
It really is. You know, it was so funny because I kind of, had a little direction and said, something about, my intro or whatever. And she came back and she said, well, I did something a little different. And she said, and I hope you like it. And then she played it for me and I was absolutely blown away. It's like she reached into my mind and my heart and took what was in there and put it on video form. And I went, wow, it just so far above anything I could have even imagined being put together. So she did a great job. I love it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I can see we've got some people with us so far, and good news from your husband, James. He says that he can actually see both of us and hear both of us. That is a good
That's
start.
Wonderful.
Yes. All righty. Adeline, Kat's daughter, is letting us know that she has said hello to Shelf, which she affectionately calls me. And we're just so glad you guys are here, Kat and David and Tammy. Good to see you. We're glad you've been able to come and join us today. We're looking forward to this presentation. You know, this is an exciting one. Today we're talking about the tribe of yhvh and the reproductive system. And when we got into it and we started looking, both Lee and I went, we're going to need a part 2 to this. There's a lot here, isn't there, Lee?
There is so very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and not just that, when we're looking at the tribe of yhvh, we've been going in marching order. And of course, we know that the tribe wasn't named yhvh in marching order because it had been passed on to his children, Ephraim and Manasseh, so but we have a lot to cover. We'll be really digging more into Ephraim and Manasseh next week, but we wanted to give some background on yhvh and what we saw there. And it ought to be really interesting. I can't wait to hear what all Lee has found. I'm going to do my part first and give us kind of some background, and then Lee will be sharing with us. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, so it's funny. I'm looking at both of our presentations. You can't see Lee's, but I can. And both of us went for the desert sands because that's we didn't talk about it.
We never do. But just like we're talking in the Word, we're going to be the same.
Exactly. So funny. All right, so here's where I started. It was back in around 2002 or so that Yah dropped this whole thing into my ruach about the fact that all the tribes were alive and well and still on planet Earth. And he just blew me away with that information. And it just captivated me. And I've been studying it, off and on ever since, but a lot of on because it's really, very much put in my heart and the excitement of watching his people come back together and be regathered is very exciting to me. So when I prayed and I had heard Yah tell me, if you'll study this out, I'll show you like the heart cry, how you can kind of recognize this heart cry out of the Psalms for each and every tribe. And so that's where we started. And this was the first thing that I was told by Yah about the tribe of Joseph. And it comes out of Psalm 30, verses 1-3. It says, I will extol you, O Yahuah, for you have lifted me up and have not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Yahweh Elohai, I cried unto you, and you have healed me. O Yahweh, you have brought up my soul from Sheol and have kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah, and you can share anything you want. Don't be afraid to interrupt me, Lee. You know I can get a little long-winded. You just jump right in there. It won't bother me a bit. Okay, so when I've studied this out, to me, I always try to key in like what's the function. And I didn't know why I was keying in on the function until later on when Yah decided to share the different body systems that are associated. I mean, that was information I didn't know. But back in the early days, I saw right away that if you wanted to truly understand what was when I say heart, the leb, it's the core, the center, the purpose, from where all purpose flows from, the passion, right? It's what drives them to be who they were meant to be, right? So what I saw was the key to understanding this for the heart of Joseph is that increase, that need to increase, to see things multiply and expand. Okay, and so I hope that that's what you're able to see throughout this presentation as we bring it forth. Okay, so we find the naming of Joseph in Genesis 30, verses 22-24. It says, and Elohim remembered Rachel, and Elohim hearkened to her and opened her womb. And the womb is hugely important, isn't it, in this presentation, Lee? Yeah, we're really going to dig into that. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And she conceived and bore a son and said, Elohim has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph and said, Yahweh shall add to me another son. So his very birth inspired within her the hope for even another son coming forth. Really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so digging into this, I wanted to look at the blessing that his father, Yaakov, blessed Joseph with, and that is found in Bereshit, or Genesis 49, 22-26. He said, Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty Elohim of Yaakov. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Yasharel, even by the Elohim of your father, who shall help you, and by El Shaddai, who shall bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies under, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father have prevailed above the blessing of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. And they shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. There is so much in that one blessing. And of course, this is by no means any kind of an exhaustive presentation, but I did want to key in on a couple of things, and that is the bows and the branches. Okay. Actually, we're going to key in on the bows, the branches, and the archers. All right. So the first thing that I wanted to share was this word bow. Okay. Joseph is a fruitful bow. Well, this is really interesting because this is H1121 out of Strong's and Brown Driver Driggs. And it is the word bene, right? And it means the son. It is a son, the grandson, the male child, right? So you can see it. I've got it here in the pictograph. It's a bet and a noon. And so we've got the house from which life is springing forth, right? And you even see that there's, the woman has what's needed, what's waiting. And I know Lee's going to go way into this, but without the male part, nothing's happening for the women, right? It's just going to stay there dormant. It takes the seed of the sun, right, to create a child in the womb of the woman, right? And so then I found this very interesting. The next word, branches. So we've got the fact that Joseph is a fruitful son. Okay. He's got everything it takes within him to bring forth the children, to bring forth the fruit. He's a fruitful son, even a fruitful bow by a well. Okay. So we've got a fruitful son with living water coming forth, right? Whose branches run over the wall. Well, the branches is the word bat. It is H1323, and it means daughter. Whose daughters, right? Because it's plural there, it's branches, whose daughters run over the wall, right? I mean, it really is amazing. It's right there for us, right? So this word is bat, right? It's daughters, it's adopted daughter, daughter-in-law, sister, granddaughters, the female child or female cousin. And then I've got it here on my next slide. I say slide. I just use the word document because I'm not as fancy as everybody else. I don't know how to do PowerPoint yet myself, but I'll figure it out eventually when I have time. But anyway, so the word right here now for bat, for daughter, is a bet with a tav at the end, right? Mm-hmm. We've got the house of the covenant. We've got, I love even the whole bet, the symbolism, because it's like a tent. So there's an entrance way, but it curves around into a protected place. Right. If that doesn't remind you of that womb, that home, that, it really, I can kind of see it in this letter too, the inner life of going on deep of what's going on in the inside. And it's a house of covenant. The daughters are to be a house of covenant.
Right. And the womb is a protective tent for the baby growing, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And a lot of people see this in the Masoretic text. I've heard this taught about it being the mem. And I can see that, but I really do like going back to the ancient pictograph and seeing it in the bait, know, because in the pictograph of the, the ancient, where it was originally given to us, you're not going to see this in a mem. You're going to see waters,
like the amniotic fluid, right?
Right. Yeah. But you're not seeing the protection, the place of protection.
Holding. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. So the next one that I wanted to look at here was the word archers. So when I looked that up, let's just go back and look for a minute here. See, it's talking about, so the branches run over the wall, right? And the wall is almost like that tent wall. It's a protection. Walls are for our protection. Fences, good fences, good walls keep things safe. That's what it's about. It really does. So it says the archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him, right? But his bow, the bow that he had to shoot arrows from, right, abode in strength. But let's look at who these archers were that sorely grieved Joseph. So it says the archers is H1167 Baal.
Wow.
Yeah. That's who was shooting at him. Baal, right? Which also translates into the word Lord as a title for a foreign god, right? Mm-hmm. So here I've got it also in the pictograph. We have a bet, we have an all-seeing eye, and we have the lamed. Right. So we've got the house. Baal is the home of that all-seeing eye of authority.
Mm.
That's who Baal is. And so because we know, this is why, I mean, people often question me, well, why can't you just say the Lord? Right?
Yeah.
Why can't you just say God? Because these things are titles. And because I have dug into the actual meaning in the Hebrew, I understand that when I say the Lord, that literally in the Hebrew, what I'm really saying is Baal. And I know there is a warning to where people come to Yahusha thinking that they have walked with him and done his ways. And they say, Baali, Baali, and he says, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I don't know who you're talking to.
Get away from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you. Yeah, I don't want to say that.
Right. And there's also a promise that, because I'm not trying to throw condemnation on anybody. We are all striving to come into the knowledge. And I'm not saying that if you've said, use those terms, because I've used those terms, we're all trying to learn and grow is what we're trying to do. And so I'm just sharing with you, let this, take it to prayer. Ask Yah, look it up, ask Yah, let him talk to you about it, right? I'm never trying to shame anyone or anything like that, but I do want to share with you what he's shared with me.
Right. And once you have those scales removed, you really, I think most people feel that same way, though, once you realize and dig into the Hebrew and you see what it means,
Yeah. And we have that. It does. And we have that promise in one of the scriptures where it talks about the fact that he says he will take, that out of our mouths. Right. And that's a wonderful,
he does. Mm-hmm.
A wonderful thing, because I think that's what he's doing for his people. He's removing the scales from our eyes. And it's like what you were just saying. You can't really unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You just know.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love this in Psalm 83:3. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against your people and consulted against your hidden ones. So I wanted to put this in there because I was digging in to the name of Joseph, and I found something really interesting.
Ooh.
So this word hidden means, it is H6845, Zaphon is the word, and it means to hide by covering something over. So your husband saying the pyramids are fitting, the sands are really fitting, because there have been things that have been hidden over, and we know that Joseph was a hidden one for the good of the entire house of Yasharel. And this is what I'm going to show in this. It's really interesting. I thought so anyway. So this word Zaphon means to hide by covering over, by implication, like to hoard something away, to hold it back in reserve for the right moment, right? So when we look at the word picture, we've got a Zodi, which is like this man hooked on his side, right? We have the pay, the mouth speaking, and we have a noon of new life sprouting up. So when you look at the word picture that's revealed, we've got someone who has been hooked to the word of life. To be hidden, right, means that you have been hooked to the word of life. And there's a hidden aspect. There's a reserve process in that, to be a hidden one. It makes me think about the fact that there's a mark placed out on his people that's not, can't be seen in the natural, but certainly it can be seen in the supernatural, right? It's hidden from us, but it's not hidden in the supernatural realm.
Right.
Very interesting, right?
It is very interesting. Mm-hmm.
So when I looked in my etymology books, to really dig into that Hebrew, it means to hide or to conceal something very protectively. I think it was expressed very well in these following verses. We get a real picture of what this word Zaphon means. And so I found it in Exodus 2:3 that when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein, and she laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. Now, so who is this talking about but Moshe and his mother, right?
Yeah.
That's what she did for him. There's another verse here, Genesis 41:45. And Pharaoh called, well, this is what I was trying to get to. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zophanath Naak. Okay. If you see it in here, we've got the Zadi, the Pei, the Noon with the Tav on the end. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the root is right here with this Zaphanath. It's right there in the root. The 3-letter root is Zaphon. Okay? For his, yes, for hidden. So the etymology of this name given to Joseph by the Egyptian pharaoh literally means he is the discoverer of hidden things, the decoder, the food man of life. He was able to interpret the dream, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I love this psalm. This reminded me of what was going on, and it has the word in there. The word is secretly. It says, Psalm 31:20, you shall hide them in the secret of your presence from the pride of man. You shall keep them secretly in a sukkah from the strife of tongues. This is a promise to all that are his. We have
and
that
promise for that, right?
Yeah, we have that promise that was given to Joseph within his name, right? Within the name that the world put on him was still the promise of who Yah says he was.
Right.
The world didn't really know that.
No.
But Yah knew.
Just like with the rest of us, and even some of us don't really know what our purpose is yet, or work in progress.
Yeah, but he is revealing and reveals in his perfect timing day by day. When we're faithful, when we are faithful and we, determine that we're going to grow wherever he has planted us, more and more is revealed. When you're faithful in what he gives you to do, then it will explode and become more and more on your plate.
Amen. Absolutely.
So while Joseph was in Egypt, he had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. They become 2 tribes in their own right within Yasharel, and that was due to their father's faithfulness. So in Genesis 48, verses 3-5, we get to see the blessing that was given to them. As Yaakov is calling everyone before he dies to give his blessing on his sons. He gives it first to Ephraim and Manasseh, right? He says, and Yaakov said unto Yosef, El Shaddai appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me and said unto me, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. And I will make of you a multitude of people and give this land to your seed after you for an everlasting possession. And now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto you in the land of Mitzrayim, before I came unto you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they shall be mine. So Yaakov's blessing to them is found in Genesis 48, in which he placed Ephraim before Manasseh. So that's Genesis 48, 16-22. And it says, and he blessed Joseph and said, Elohim, before whom my fathers Ephraim and Yitzhak did walk, the Elohim which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, In you shall Yasharel bless, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Yasharel said unto Elioseph, Behold, I die, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I've given to you one portion above your brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Emery with my sword and with my bow. He's like saying, I took the portion that the fallen watchers were operating in and had given to their sons, the Emerim. I took that literally away from them and gave it to you.
Wow.
I don't understand that, but it's amazing.
It is.
It is. And this is where, we see in the traditions of Judaism on the Shabbat, they say blessings over the children. And so within the religion of Judaism, they will say on their daughters, may yahuah, or may God, however they choose to say it, may he make you as Rachel and Leah, and then to the sons, it says, may you be as Ephraim and Manasseh. And this is where that comes from, So I just found that interesting, just a little bit of traditional lore there. Okay, so moving on to Moshe's prophecy to Joseph. It is very similar to Yaakov's and is found in Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17. We see still that whole theme of increase. And it says, and of Joseph he said, Blessed of yahuah be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, and for the deep that couches beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the thorn bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glories like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns like the horns of the reem. And with them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
Wow.
So interesting there. Yeah.
Very.
So I was going to share a little bit out of the Testament of Joseph.
It was so interesting reading in this. I think everyone's really going to love it. It just blew me away. All of it.
It did me too. Now it is 20 chapters long, and I'm not reading all 20 chapters.
Right.
But I've kind of given us a synopsis. Some of the chapters I want to go ahead and read so that everybody can understand the flavor of it and what's being said. And other parts I'm going to give a synopsis. So, okay. So I did go ahead with chapter 1. The copy of the testament of Joseph. When he was about to die, he called his sons and his brethren together and said to them, My brethren and my children, hearken to Joseph, the beloved of Yasharel. Give ear, my sons, unto your father. I have seen in my life envy and death, yet I went not astray, but persevered in the truth of yahuah. These my brethren hated me, but yahuah loved me. They wished to slay me, but the Elohim of my fathers guarded me. They let me down into a pit, and El Elyon brought me up again. I was sold into slavery, and yahuah of all made me free. I was taken into captivity, and his strong hand helped me. I was beset with hunger, and yahuah himself nourished me. I was alone, and Elohim comforted me. I was sick, and yahuah visited me. I was in prison, and Elohim showed favor unto me. Boy, doesn't this remind you of something?
Oh,
The
yes.
whole,
It's
yeah,
yahusha.
absolutely. I mean, it's almost like word for word that Yahusha gave us in the
In Matthew, yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. It's
It
amazing, isn't
really
it?
is almost verbatim. So to me, Yahusha was well aware of this writing, well aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like that confirmation because he was really just reiterating exactly
He
what Joseph
was,
had said. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I was in prison, and my Elohim showed favor unto me in bonds, and he released me, slandered, and he pleaded my cause bitterly. Sorry, I messed my mouse up. Okay. Bitterly spoken against by the Mitzrayim, and he delivered me, envied by my fellow slaves, and he exalted me. Chapter 2. And this chief captain of Pharaoh entrusted to me his house, and I struggled against a shameless woman, urging me to transgress with her. But the Elohai of Yasharel, my father, delivered me from the burning flame. I was cast into prison. I was beaten. I was mocked. But Yahweh granted me to find mercy in the sight of the keeper of the prison. For Yahweh does not forsake them that fear him, neither in darkness, nor in bonds, nor in tribulations, nor in necessities. For Elohim is not put to shame as a man, nor as the Son of Man is he afraid, nor as one that is earthborn is he weak or frightened. But in all those things does he give protection, and in diverse ways does he comfort, though for a little space he departs to try the inclination of the soul. In 10 temptations he showed me approved, and in all of them I endured. For endurance is the mighty charm, and patience gives many good things.
Wow.
There's so much in that, isn't there, Lee? I mean,
There is so much.
when I was thinking about the 10, like the 10 temptations, well, and I was thinking about the archers, we know that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but flesh and blood are how the enemy tries to get through us. He uses flesh and blood and
He does.
arms them with the arrows that he's shooting. It comes
Absolutely.
from people's mouths and people's actions. And the clue for us is, listen, they are being inspired by an evil ruach, but all we have to go by is the behavior, right?
Right.
And
Right.
there are brothers and sisters many times, just like this was in Joseph, but their behavior is being inspired by an evil ruach. And you have to learn how to have that discernment to recognize it. I mean, his story in this testament is just it's astounding to me,
It
right?
is. It is. And it is so reflective. I have always understood this story, Joseph, and now it has such a deeper meaning to me, rather than feeling that, anger or hurt or, any of those feelings we feel when we go through these arrows being shot at us, or when people we love knock us down or hide us in a pit. That's figuratively, I'm sure a lot of people know what that feels like, although we weren't actually in a pit. But what Joseph, how he handles it, what's written in the testament is just amazing. You said something yesterday when we were talking about this, and I think you're fixing in the next couple of verses. He was happy to be in prison because while he was there, he didn't have to deal with the temptation of the woman that was using sorcery on him. She was trying to get him through his food, like making spells and putting them in his food. Like he went through some stuff.
He
Like I
did.
think he went quite a while without eating because he was fearful of what she was putting in his food.
Yeah, well, you see it when you read through those next chapters, and this, I'm glad you're talking about it, because that I was just going to give a synopsis, and this is exactly it. It describes how she's telling him, I'll do away with my husband, I'll poison him so that you and I can be together. He's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
I will
what
have
kind
you
of
out
woman
of
is
this
this?
jail cell. You're going to have clothes. You're going to have everything you want. You don't have to be abused in this jail cell. And he was thanking Yahuah for putting him in that jail cell.
To keep
I
him
mean,
away from her.
right,
Yeah.
right. But that was due to his absolute level of understanding of keeping the commandments and not sinning, not committing adultery. And he kept telling her, I am not going to commit adultery with you, period.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Put me in
No.
jail.
And I've been thinking about that. Why was she relentlessly, why did the evil, I mean, certainly the woman already was underneath the influence of a spirit of lust, but why was she fixated on Joseph? Because she was literally, it's like fatal attraction. She was
It is. He
fixated on
said
him.
no. He said no. And just how in life, when someone tells you no, sometimes you're going to keep hammering it until you either get him to say yes or you got to hit the road,
Yeah.
and that's what she was doing. He said no. And not only did she have an evil ruach within her, that drove her fire even more of, say no to me. Do you know who I am? It's that attitude. I don't think you know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
My experience is this, that, or the other, or I come from this house, or look at everything I have, and you're saying no to me. It insulted her. So
Yeah.
she was going to make it happen.
Well, and here's the whole thing, I think that the evil ruach that was stirring her up in those attitudes, exactly what you're saying. And I do think from that natural perspective, that was what was being stirred up within her. But I think that the evil ruach behind it was, we know that the seed of Joseph and his commission and his job is for the saving of all of Yasharel, right?
And had to
Because
stop it.
he had to try to stop it.
Yeah.
Right. We've got
it
to
was all
corrupt
designed
him.
for that. Yeah.
He's got to be corrupted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
was relentlessly pursued.
Yes. And when he was like thanking y'all to be in prison, I was like, bless his heart, because he was going through so much.
Yeah.
But he was happy. It's like,
Yeah.
thank goodness she can't get to me in here.
Not in here. Yeah. Craziness, isn't it?
It is.
And then what I noticed too was that, it says this 10 temptations. To me, I wonder if that wasn't the 10 brothers that had thrown him into the pit, because the younger brother, Benjamin, wasn't old enough. Benjamin was like 6 years younger. So Benjamin wasn't sent out with him. So Joseph was about 17 at this point.
He was 17.
So, yeah. So Benjamin would have been only about 11 years old, So, but the 10 temptations, I'm wondering if it wasn't a temptation of wanting to get even with every one of those brothers who would let this happen, who would cause this to happen to him.
That's great insight there. I think you're onto something. That very well may be it. That makes sense.
Maybe, we don't know for sure. We just try to keep, trying to figure out, and Yah reveals what he reveals to us as he does. Right. But that was just kind of my thought on it, that could be a possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So chapters 3-9, this is what Lee and I were really just kind of discussing, describes the various ways and means by which the Mitzrayim woman was attempted to bewitch Joseph, and how he kept praying, fasting, and resisting, right to the point of being grateful to be in prison.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I did want to read some out of chapter 10 and 11. It says, "You see, therefore, my children, how great things patience works, and prayer with fasting. So ye too, if you follow after chastity and purity with patience and prayer, with fasting, humility of heart, Yahuah will dwell among you because he loves chastity. And wheresoever El Elyon dwells, even though envy or slavery or slander befalls a man, Yahuah, who dwells in him for the sake of his chastity, not only delivers him from evil, but also exalts him even as me. For in every way the man is lifted up, whether in deed or in word or in thought. My brethren knew how my father loved me, and yet I did not exalt myself in my mind. Although I was a child, I had the fear of Elohim in my heart, for I knew that all things would pass away, and I did not raise myself against them with evil intent, but I honored my brethren, and out of respect for them, even when I was being sold, I refrained from telling the Yishmaelim that I was a son of Yaakov, a great man and a mighty. That mighty is, like a strong man, a man of renown, right, on the earth. So now going into chapter 11, verses 1 through 3. Do ye also, my children, have the fear of Elohim in all your works before your eyes, and honor your brethren, for everyone who does the Torah of Yahuah shall be loved by him. And when I came to the Endokolpite with the Yishmaelim, so I'm not quite sure what that word is, but it's somehow whatever the ones he was sold to first, right? It may have been a place. I'm not sure. We'd have to study further. They asked me, saying, are you a slave? And I said that I was a home-born slave, that I might not put my brethren to shame. And the eldest of them said unto me, you are not a slave, for even your appearance does not make it manifest. As I was reflecting on this and reflecting on those 10 brothers being the 10 temptations, right? To want to say, look what they did, and to want revenge on them, right? And this is what's been put under, but he is having to look at the bigger picture, look towards the saving of all of Yasharel, and look at the job that Yahuah has entrusted to him. And so he is constantly putting his flesh under. I mean, it's an amazing story. There sure are not many, myself included, that know how to do this. This is tough stuff of serving Yah.
And when I read that again, of course I see yahusha and everything, but didn't that have the same feeling? He was not about to put the blame on us. That's what yahusha came for, was to take that. And here you see Joseph literally saying, covering up for his brothers. He's covering for them. He's protecting them so he can save them.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, to get to see the parallels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have just a little bit more, and then I'm going to pass the baton to Lee. So in chapter 17, I wanted to give us part of that. It says, you see, therefore, my children, what great things I endured, that I should not put my brethren to shame. Do ye also, therefore, love one another. Does this not sound just like the words of Yahusha?
It does.
And with long suffering, hide ye one another's faults, for Elohim delights in the unity of brethren and in the purpose of a heart, that takes pleasure in love. And when my brethren came into Mitzrayim, they learnt that I had returned their money unto them and upbraided them not and comforted them. Wow. Just what Yahusha does for us, right?
Every day. Mm-hmm.
Every day. And after the death of Yaakov, my father, I loved them more abundantly, and all things whatsoever he commanded, I did very abundantly for them. And I suffered them not to be afflicted in the smallest matter. And all that was in my hand I gave unto them, and their children were my children, and my children as their servants. And their life was my life, and all their suffering and all their sickness was my infirmity. My land was their land, and their counsel my counsel, and I exalted not myself among them in arrogance because of my worldly glory, but I was among them as one of the least.
Amen.
Amazing. There's Yahusha.
It is in every word of it.
Yeah.
And every step Joseph took, everything that he endured, everything that he did was to ensure Israel.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
just absolutely all of it blew me away. And all of it was so reflective of the coming Messiah, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I did just a little synopsis here. If you're looking at chapters 18 through 20, it's so interesting because chapters 18 through 20 goes into a vision that's describing the 12 tribes scattered into the nations and their regathering and deliverance by the Lamb of Elohim. And it literally says, the Lamb of Elohim who takes away the sin of the world. Right there.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And we wonder if it was this all planned out, you know?
Yeah. So
no wonder this is hidden from the Bibles that we grew up with. No wonder this was taken out and hidden for this time. And here we are in the time.
Because it's the words of Yahusha before Yahusha came in the flesh.
Right?
Amazing. Yeah. So I did also see this reflected in the words of Paul. And you know, after he went through his suffering for the body too, right? So it's Ephesians 4, verses 1 through 16. It says, I, therefore, the prisoner of Yahweh, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the calling wherewith you are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to guard the unity of the Ruach in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Ruach, even as you are called in one hope of your calling, one Yah, one faith, one baptism, one Elohim and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. But unto every one of us is given grace according to the measure of the gift of Mashiach. Wherefore, when he says, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. Now that he ascended, what is it but that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? He that descended is the same also that ascended up far above all heavens, that he might fill all things. And he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and teachers for the perfecting of the Kodashim, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Mashiach, till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of Elohim, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Mashiach, that we henceforth be no more children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Mashiach, from whom the whole body fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplies, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, makes increase of the body into the edifying of itself in love. Reproductive system right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so amazing how all of this ties together, and amazing how, you know, Yahweh led you to study out the tribes and then like you did that for what, 20 years?
Yeah.
And then downloads the rest of the story, like Paul Harvey says, and now for the rest of the story, you know, and how amazing in this time when there is an apostasy going on, there is a falling away that's happening, and we know that that has to happen. It's written about that that's going to happen. But here we can bring and hopefully hang on to each other within the body and show this design, this beautiful, beautiful design of Yahuah, not just for his tribes, but it started with us, you know?
Yeah, sure did. All right, I have one more short thing to share, and then I'm turning it over to Lee. So this is my last little bit. It's in Jeremiah 1, verse 5. It says, "Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you, and I ordained you a prophet unto the nations." So I just wanted to look at these words. There's the belly, which is H990, meaning batin. So we've got a bet, a tet, and a noon, right? So we've got the house that is surrounded. From the house that is surrounded, life is coming forth, right? That's what we're seeing in the pictograph. And then in the womb, and I may need help with this pictograph, I'm not quite sure here, but the womb means rakam, right? And you and I don't know, Lee, you might have this in your notes, but we've got a resh. We have from the womb, it's H7358, and it is rakem. And I'm probably pronouncing the Hebrew wrong, but it is a resh. So we've got, every time I look at this, to me, it's the thought life, right? There's something in the mind, right?
In the mind, right?
The thought, you know, of the thought of a fence. There's a division, a wall, a fence in the head. And then there's the waters, right? So to me, the fences are always protection. So I always look at, you know, like maybe Yah created the womb because he thought, I'm going to protect with the waters, you know,
the living water, because
yeah,
you have to have that amniotic fluid, and there has to be a certain amount, you know, to support it. Not only is the function of protecting the baby, it's a cushion for the baby, it's nutrients for the baby. It helps the whole process of the pregnancy. So that fencing literally is the womb holding in those waters, you know, because we have to have that for 9 months.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Right. So interesting.
Well, that was, I have a little, I know that you're going to have me share a little something at one point, and then when we're all done, I have more scriptures to share at the very end. But other than that, the floor is now yours.
Awesome. And I did go with the sands as well. It's funny how even what you were just saying, you reading Jeremiah, my mercy poured forth tomorrow is about being chosen. So
wow,
we're always in tune with each other at Heart of the Tribes. And so much of what we're talking about, like I had James read it early this morning. So I'm sure he's like, wow, because we're always it's the Father leading through us. And it's always a second witness or a third witness. It's sometimes a fourth witness.
Yeah.
But I chose the sand for the same reason, because, or maybe slightly different, because out of something barren comes life. And that's what happened, with bringing forth Joseph. Not that she was barren, but he had to wait those 14 years. Yaakov did. So I just take this off of the form every week that you sent me all this fun time ago as we embarked on this journey, which I just love. Every week is, to me, just like another confirmation from the Father of how unique our situation is here and how loved we are by him. And with Joseph, his name is increase, or to add that yasaf that you put on there. But I also see him as love, because I always associate Yahusha with such a great love. Joseph had such a love for his family. And to bring forth life, you normally have to love for that to happen, for there to be life. So, as you wrote in your wonderful book that I love on the 12 tribes that I use as my companion as I'm studying what your vast knowledge is versus what I'm trying to add in. But the understanding of the heart of Joseph is increased. And of course, that's mirrored in the key functions of the reproductive system because it is designed to increase. It's designed for us to reproduce, for us to have offspring, and for them to grow and them to continue. And that's just the cycle of one of the main functions that we're here, right? So Joseph is the son of Yaakov and Rachel, and we see that Yaakov was tricked after working 7 years for Laban and to marry Leah first, and then had to work another 7 years to marry Rachel. And Joseph was the 11th son of Yaakov. And like you said, that blessing was very similar to that of Yaakov's, and it was a blessing of increase. One thing I found that I wanted to put in here, I just found so interesting, was Joseph was given that coat of many colors that we've all heard about. It's one of the main things I heard about growing up, even dealing with Joseph, was the coat of many colors. But that symbolized favor. It set him apart, that favor in that coat. And it would have been very different than the work coats of his brothers. And that likely was inflamed their dislike for Joseph because they could look across the field or look across wherever and yep, there he is. I mean, he stood out because he had that beautiful coat and here they are in their work coats. So that hit me. And though Joseph was thrown in that pit and sold into slavery and even imprisoned due to a lie against him, that he was attempting to rape the Mitzrayim woman, he would emerge from that situation in a position necessary to save his family from starvation. They were his prophecy, the 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine were prophesied by Joseph by the way of the dream interpretation for Pharaoh. And there's a lot we're going to see. For some reason, I pray about this and I meditate on it and I let him show me what he wants me to see in it. And a lot of this had to do with timing of things. And we know with pregnancy, timing is very important. So our reproductive system is the human organ system responsible for the production and fertilization of gametes, which are the sperm or eggs, and in females, the carrying of the fetus, of the baby. Both male and female reproductive systems have the organs that are called the gonads that produce the gametes. So that's just a very brief, basic overhaul of both or explanation of both. But I really felt led by yahuah that the female reproductive system really mirrored a lot of Joseph and his sacrifice and what he went through for the increase and the protection of Israel, right?
Right.
So this is his direction, not mine at all. Our ovaries in the females produce the female egg cells necessary for reproduction that are called the ova or oocytes. And the system is designed to transport that ova or the egg to the site of fertilization. Conception is the fertilization of an egg by a sperm, normally occurs in the fallopian tubes. And then the next step is the fertilized egg is to implant into the walls of the uterus, beginning the initial stage of pregnancy. If fertilization and or implantation does not take place, then the system is designed to menstruate or shed the uterine lining. And that's what we call a period that women go through every month. And the womb here, like Chelle was saying, is just this protection, this place that is hidden for the growth of the increase, for the baby to grow in. And it's for their protection, for their nurturing. It's like a waterbed in there. You know, a mom can be in a car wreck or fall down or whatever, and they're pretty protected in that water encasement within the uterus, or within the womb, within the uterus, that's made to expand to carry a sometimes 10-pound baby, depending on how much the baby grows. And one of the main things with Joseph and increase, at birth, a woman will have approximately 1 million eggs. Think about that. 1 million eggs. And by the time of puberty, that has dropped to about 300,000 still. Wow. And out of all of these, only 300 to 400 are going to be ovulated during a woman's reproductive lifetime. So fertility drops as a woman ages due to the decreasing number and quality of the remaining eggs. And you may be thinking, how is this reproductive system going to coincide with the tribe of Joseph? Well, hang on, and you will see. Because there were moments I was like, okay, what are you going to do with this, Yah? And he's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to show you. You just hang on. So first, as we read, it took about 14 years for Laban, working for Laban, that Yaakov would get to marry Rachel, whom he loved the most. And for a woman, the menstrual cycle is 28 days. And between days 7 and 14, one follicle will continue to develop and reach maturation. And the lining of the uterus starts to thicken, waiting for a fertilized egg to implant there. The lining is rich in blood and nutrients. And around day 14, hormones cause that mature follicle to burst and release the egg from the ovary. And that process is called ovulation. And then over the next few days, the egg travels down the fallopian tubes towards the uterus. And this is the time in the cycle where you're able to become pregnant, you know. And if a sperm unites with an egg and it fertilizes the egg, it continues down to attach into the lining of the uterus. And there are so many videos out there now that you can see that just show this process within the body. So you can actually see the egg go and implant into the uterus, and the uterus pulls it in and protects it, goes around it. And then you've got this wonderful life growing. And to me, it was so reflective. And I see a lot of things. My brain goes that direction. I see a lot of reflection in the life of Joseph. He was sold into slavery at 17, and he went from the pit to a slave in Potiphar's house, and then was in charge of that whole house until the wife of Potiphar accused him of attempted rape when she couldn't seduce him, which we've gone through that. It was horrible what he went through. So he spent 2 years in prison and then became the vice regent to Pharaoh at age 30. He went from Potiphar's slave to his boss. How is that for a turn of events? So, I mean, when I read that, I was like clapping. Yes, he did. He became his boss.
That's right.
So he, let's see, a woman, 13 years total, he was in some form of captivity or restraint. So a woman begins ovulation around age 13, earlier for some, I get it. But Joseph was released to prepare for the coming famine, and his plan was ingenious and gave life to so many, including his own family. And an egg is kept in the confines of the ovary until the time to be released to bring forth life. And the same with the growing baby. They're kept within the confines of a uterus, within the womb, and protected and grown for that specific time when they can be born. And I just find the correlation between Joseph and what Yah had planned for him and what he had to go through step by step, even protecting his own brothers who sold him into slavery and wanted him dead. Like he knew they wanted him dead. Excuse me. Can you imagine what he heard them talking about while he was in the pit?
Wow. Yeah.
Think about that. You know, they didn't immediately run off and leave. They put him in that pit, and then they have the conversation about how to kill him. What are they going to do? You know, there was a whole debate going on, and I'm sure it was quite oh my goodness, the Queen of England has passed away.
Yep.
I figured something was happening when I read that the family was rushing to be by her side earlier. Well,
wow.
Prayers for the Queen's family. Wow, that is news. Thank you, Catherine. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your throat.
Oh,
your
no,
flow.
no,
I
I was
you might want to
fixing
know
to read
that.
it too. I've heard my phone clicking my news app. I've heard it, and I just know what it was. So, thank you, Catherine. That is well, that's a historical thing right there.
Sure
And we know where we were at September 8th
right.
at 1 o'clock.
That's right.
So do you agree, Chelle, seeing how even from the egg to the baby is in that captive situation?
Yeah, I think that's amazing because and the other thing that made me think about that is, you know, the like the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvahs, those happen around that same time frame, you know, even within the Jewish religion, when they, you know, consider that their children are becoming more of age, able to participate in more things. And so I find that really interesting too. I believe for the boys, it's age 13 and the girls age 12. But, you know, I find that really interesting. It's that time frame.
And yahuah is about time. He is about numbers, and they're specific and they're repetitive. And I've seen him through every body system. And the things that he opens my eyes to is he's trying to make us realize everything it's not an accident. It doesn't just, it happens. Like, it's a design. It is designed with an order. There is an order to all of this. And although we may not get the complete picture of this, I'm sure it will be the day when we're gathered together in New Jerusalem and we have all of a sudden the knowledge, and I'm sure we're going to be like, oh, this is what this meant, or you know.
I have lots of questions.
I do too. And I'm sure it's going to be quite an event. All the people with all their questions. Blah, 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 blah. So there's key female fertility hormones. And as a nurse, I've done so many reviews trying to help those that are trying to become pregnant. And my youngest daughter has actually been through so much of this. Just when one thing is off, I tell you, it really can put everything to a halt. So there's 4. There we are with that number 4. There's 4 key female fertility hormones, and these all have to be working. That's how this is a grand design. All 4 of these have to be working. And we know, Chelle, how much we've talked about that number 4, you know, and how significant it is through all of the word, through all of our lives, you know. Wow. So the FSH, or the follicle stimulating hormone, that is what gets the follicle to do what it needs to do so it can burst out and turn into the egg, you know, or burst the egg out so the egg can be fertilized. And that hormone is made and sent out by the pituitary gland in the brain. And most of these are there. So if you have an issue with your pituitary gland, which looks like a little pea, in the right underneath your brain, right in the center underneath your brain, looks like a little pea, you can't have a baby. It won't work. And that includes the LH, the luteinizing. I could never say that. I always just called it the LH. It's also made in the pituitary gland, and then the oestrogen is made in the ovaries. So all of these things have to work. Then we've got the progesterone, which we think that's a male thing, but it's also a female thing. And it is a steroid hormone belonging in the class called progesterones. And it's secreted by the corpus luteum in the ovary. That's a structure within the ovary, which is a temporary endocrine gland that a female body produces after ovulation during the second half of your menstruation cycle. So you don't have it except for only during that specific time. And then once you become pregnant, we know that HCG is what the lab is that they're drawing when you first find out you're pregnant. And this number has to keep climbing in the first, 6 to 12 weeks. And then we really don't worry about it after that. But this is the lab that they're drawing to make sure everything's going fine. And it's usually the indicator that a pregnancy is not going to proceed if it stops rising, because it's found in the mother's blood and urine. And that is how we check that during the whole first trimester. And it is the culprit, excuse me, of nausea and vomiting, often linked to pregnancy. So now you know what to blame it on. Blame it on that. Right. Because it didn't end at the first trimester for me. I was sick for 9 months. I don't know what it got confused about, but it just never stopped. Excuse me. So for the first 12 hours after conception, oh, hang on. This is where I wanted you to read your part.
Oh, okay. All right. So I called Lee yesterday and we had story time.
I love story time.
I know. I do that to Lee a lot. Listen to this. So there was this book by Dr. Henry W. Wright, Exposing the Spiritual Roots of Disease. It's in chapter 5. And so I was reading this book and I thought, this is so amazing. So it's in the midst of chapter 5 and it's in a section entitled, You Are a Miracle. Now I'm reading it exactly the way he wrote it. He doesn't use the same names that I use, but that's okay. I want to read this the way that he wrote it. God has created the human body with a plan for your health. You need to understand how your body is constructed and how that plan is thwarted by the decisions you make in your thought life. We'll start at your beginning. Shortly after conception, the fertilized egg begins the process of cell mitosis, which is simply the original cells multiplying into additional formative cells. 3 of the earliest cells in your body development form the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. What are they? Amazing foundational blocks for the development of the entire human body. Again, please follow along with me because these details are important for overcoming disease. It says, take a look at the chart on the following page, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. There you are. Developed from the ectoderm, you have a brain, a nervous system, a cardiovascular system, a heart rhythm, skin, hair, eyes, ears, and nose. From the mesoderm, you have your heart circulation, muscles, skeletal form, kidneys, bone marrow, blood vessels, lymph glands, and more. Finally, from the endoderm, you have your liver, lungs, intestines, urinary tract, and the endocrine system, which includes important glands such as the pituitary and the hypothalamus glands. This is you. This is what you are on the inside. Past the gorgeous hunk of dust looking at us, you are a creative miracle, and all of these systems are highly responsive and regulated by a flow that originates in your brain. So I just thought this was really interesting. This is the page where he's got this little chart, showing on there. What I found interesting about it, Lee, was the fact that it was, there was 3 parts to it. And so within this tribe, we've got 3 main players. We've got Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim right there within it. And the fact that this has the three things, the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm, to even get started producing with with reproduction and producing a new person.
Right. And you're going to be blown away, because I wanted that there, because you're going to see here that it's at the end of 3 days that fertilized egg cell has become that berry-like structure made of up to 16 cells. So at that point, we're right at where you were at. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
I mean, how quickly that happens, you know?
Yeah.
The first 12 hours, it remains a single cell. Then after 30, it divides from 1 to 2, then 15, 2 to 4. Then at the end of 3 days, you see 16. Like, wow. And
amazing.
I was going to add a video, but there wasn't any that was short enough. And some of them it looked so fake. It wasn't even worth showing. But there are some good things out there to see if anyone is interested to see what that process is like as it turns into the little tadpole. It looks like a little tadpole at first, you know, the size of a grain of sand, though. I mean, just wow. The Father is truly amazing. And we all know that a full-term pregnancy is roughly 40 weeks or 280 days, give or take 7 days, or some of us that just seem like it would never end since the last menstrual period. Like, I can remember walking a week overdue with my middle daughter that was 8 pounds, talking to her and the Father going, can't she just get out? Just let her get out. So, of course, for 40 weeks is really 10 months or 10 years, however you feel like it feels like.
Absolutely.
And, I thought it was interesting that what you read covers, you know, with flow from the brain, because the pituitary is so important and key. And to me, that even links to Joseph, because studying yesterday, I read a lot about what he did during the famine to prepare for not only for his family, but for all of Israel. And it was completely ingenious what he did. Like, he spent the first amount of his time when he was the vice regent, I think was his position. But he just rode around everywhere, to the farms, to the people, and saw who was growing what, who had what knowledge they had. Were they putting stuff back? You know, were they lazy? Like, he knew who was doing what, and then came up with a plan.
Yeah.
And he took 15% from them for Pharaoh and put it back. However, all of that was put back would ultimately be used for them, you know. Right. And in pregnancy, all of the things that happen in the woman's body, we are preparing to feed our baby. And there's a process that happens as we deliver that child that sends off certain of those hormones. It stops that HCG. That's what keeps you pregnant. So that hormone is shut off. Don't need it anymore. We need the baby on the outside. But when that happens, it immediately stimulates the mother to make milk to feed the baby, you know.
You know what's wild is when I was explaining, you know, about the hidden name, and that in Egypt he was called the food man was one of the names.
Yes.
I saw you go, wow, and I wasn't sure why you went, wow, now it makes sense.
Yes, because he was so smart, just like the Father has made the female body in being able to support the baby. The baby is going to get what it needs in utero, whether you're eating enough or not. That baby's going to take and take and take. And I just saw the reflection of Joseph putting up in the storehouse, you know. And we do gain extra weight and more weight because we're the storehouse. And it's not just to grow a baby, it's so we can feed that baby. And it's just so beautiful and amazing. And even the process of breastfeeding makes the uterus go back to the normal size, makes you stop bleeding. You know, there's a whole reason behind him behind making us that way. You know, it makes you lose the weight faster because everything goes back the way it should, you know. And there we saw Joseph gathering and preparing, and that's exactly what happens during the whole pregnancy. Is we're gathering and preparing, not just to grow and take care of it during that time period, but it's even more so for when we deliver that baby, because we know after the baby is born, they have no immune system. They get that immune system in colostrum in the first probably week or two of their life when they're breastfeeding. They get that from the mom. So we're giving them protection. We're protecting them and their life from that moment forward. And all they really need, I mean, not that I'm saying only breastfeed for a week or two. I'm just saying a lot of moms have issues being able to do it for 6 months or longer. But if you can do a week or two, that's really all they need. You know, they need that immune system. The father's design is just amazing, and the reproductive system, and then later the growing the baby and the birth of the baby is amazing. And I know Nitsa talked about this. Let there be light, and I put that as the title for this slide because how beautiful is creation. And to me, when I look at this, when I first looked at this before I watched the video, it looks like a planet. It looks like a celestial being out in space, and looks like all the stars around it, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is an egg, and this is at the moment of conception. I don't know if it's got sound with it or if we're just going to see it. Hopefully it's going to play. Oh, good. I love the drawing.
I do too. It's great.
It gets better, I promise.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Look at and there's the cells dividing that you were talking about.
Oh, wow.
Look at them all firing off. Do you see that? And it's zinc. What do we know about zinc? You know, that's something that we need to be able to deal with and fight infection. So it really has so much to do with life. And that's the light, that spark from the zinc being shoved out of the egg. But I just wanted to share that part because let there be light, you know. He said, let there be light. Yeah. And that's us.
That is
with his promise for our life. And that's what I saw in that. Like, it actually made me cry because I thought at that moment, he knew our face, our name. He knew our purpose. He knew what we would be, that we would be here right now. You know, it was, to me, that light was him. It was him.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And with that, I'm going to share this last thing. I just can't believe how well this goes together. I added this like in the last 10 minutes before it was time for us to go on. I felt impressed to read these scriptures. So here they are. It's Isaiah 43:1 now, 1 through 19. My husband on his show last night read 43:1, and because it really touches him. And and I was inspired, and that, like I said, 10 minutes
was
before it was
beautiful.
time for us to do this, right? But now thus says yahuah, that created you, O Yaakov, and he that formed you, O Yasharel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon you. For I am Yahweh Eloheka, the Holy One of Yasharel, your Savior. I gave Mitzrayim for your ransom, Cush and Seba for you. Since you were precious in my sight, you have been honorable. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay. Since you were precious in my sight, you've been honorable, and I have loved you. Therefore will I give men for you and people for your life. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your seed from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Even everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this and show us former things? Let them bring forth their witnesses, that they may be justified, or let them hear and say, it is truth. You are my witnesses, says Yahweh, and my servant, whom I have chosen, that ye may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no Ephraim, neither shall there be after me. I, even I, am Yahweh, and besides me there is no Savior. I have declared and have saved, and I have showed when there was no strange Elohim among you. Therefore ye are my witnesses, says Yahweh, that I am El. Yea, before the day was, I am he, and there is none that can deliver out of my hand. I will work, and who shall let it? Thus says Yahweh, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Yasharel. For your sake I have sent to Babel and have brought down all their nobles. What a day to be reading this, right? And the Kasdim, whose cry is in the ships. I am Yahweh, your Holy One, the Creator of Yasharel, your King. Thus says Yahweh, which makes a way in the sea and a path in the mighty waters, which brings forth the chariot and horse, the army and the power. They shall lie down together. They shall not rise. They are extinct. They are quenched as tow. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert.
Amen.
Wow.
I totally see why he led you to that.
Yeah. Yep. He is amazing. And thank you everyone for being with us today. I know that there's a lot going on. I mean, I can see my Telegram has blown up while we've been on. So I know we've got a lot of chatter. And for those of you who are with us on Telegram, we'll see you over there and continue our discussions over there. But for today,
Right.
This was our presentation on Yosef. And I think we'll probably come back next week and do more on this with more of the reproductive with Ephraim and Manasseh. I'll kind of
the male reproductive system, and then maybe also tie it together, because this one I just really felt led to deal with the egg, the beginning of conception, the beginning of it, and we'll kind of put it together and then go beyond next week, because I just really felt the need to separate them, because he is to bring forth increase, and that's what we saw here. And James and I'll be back at an hour and a half. if everyone will join us at
Yes.
4 Eastern, we're going to be talking the love of many shall wax cold. And
Wow.
it is going to be a very in-depth and interesting, especially now with the news we just got of the Queen of England passing away. There's going to be a lot in our discussion. And then in the morning on Mercy Poured Forth, I'm going to go over that we're all chosen. And boy, Chelle, really, the Father was talking to both of us about the same thing as usual. And that's wonderful. And then we have Kat and Lee tomorrow, right? And that's at 4 Eastern.
Yeah, 4 p.m.
Right? Okay. Because I'm an hour off, I'm always confused on the time.
They're 4:30 p.m.
That's right.
EST. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So much going on.
Thank you so much. There's so much going on. This was so much fun. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Lee, so much for joining me for this series.
Chelle.
I love doing it with you. It's just been, I mean, just mind expanding. So many things coming forth, and I'm really enjoying doing the series with you.
I am too. Thank you so much.
All righty.
Shalom to everybody.
Shalom, everyone. May Yahweh keep you and bless you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you of his shalom. Fear not. Father Yah is still on his throne. No matter what's taking place in this world, he is firmly on his throne. All righty. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Their journey began in Yasharel. But they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beats, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.